Welcome to the Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Welcome to the Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80. My name is Clinton Yates, kiddos. I happen to be in the District of Columbia. You know what's just a couple miles up the road? That would be one Baltimore, Maryland, where the Baltimore Ravens play in the NFL. They've broken camp just like everybody else, and they're back. And there's talk of our favorite non-NFL player potentially joining that roster. Colin Kaepernick may find his way to the purple and black, if you will. They need an arm. Flacco's hurt. Harbaugh connection. It makes sense. We're not going to deep dive necessarily right now into whether or not he should be in the league, because we do that every single day of the week here on ESPN Radio, which is fine. Later in the program, we're going to talk to writer and journalism professor at Morehouse College, David Dennis Jr., about that very topic. Later in the program as well, we're going to talk to ESPN's Josina Anderson on the rest of the NFL camps getting underway, as well as OBJ's contract with the Giants. But let's think about this right quick. John Harbaugh, brother of Jim Harbaugh, used to coach Colin Kaepernick. Natural connection there. They know each other. But the more important setting for this entire situation is clearly Baltimore, Maryland. Now, why did Colin Kaepernick get written out of the league? I won't necessarily use the buzzword blackballed or whisper campaign or whatever all you other idiots in my mentions want to call it. But what I'm saying is that Baltimore, Maryland has a very, very prominent role in what Kaepernick was talking about in terms of police brutality in this nation. The Freddie Gray case was a national story. Guy died after being roughed around in the back of a police van. This is exactly the kind of thing that Colin Kaepernick was talking about when he decided to take a knee for the national anthem. He goes and plays in that city. That becomes a totally different discussion than it had been if he goes somewhere else. That's not Colin Kaepernick backing up in San Diego. That's not him getting on a roster in Tampa Bay. For better or for worse, Colin Kaepernick playing for the Ravens is an automatically 100% more politically charged situation than I'd say 90% of the other teams in the league. Maybe Chicago and LA squad is on that list, but those are also bigger cities than Baltimore. Baltimore is not the largest place in terms of the community surrounding the area. Relatively tight-knit setup. Kaepernick's whole, I don't want to call it a show because that sounds like it's demeaning it, but his whole situation coming down on that town, man, that would be fascinating. There's a part of me that wants to see that happen, just to see how the Ravens as an organization handle that. This has always been my big thing. NFL teams don't have to lie about why they don't want people on their rosters. Sometimes they choose to. But I think a lot of teams just aren't prepared to deal with everything that comes with having Colin Kaepernick. If as a front office you know, hey, look, I don't know that our infrastructure from a workflow standpoint is just going to be able to deal with this crush of media and whatever else may come from having a guy like that on your roster, I can live with that. You don't got to tell me 9 different things about how he can't get the ball down the field or isn't as mobile as he once was, because that's a lie, and we all know that. But if your organization isn't ready for Colin Kaepernick, I understand that. I think Baltimore might be. I think the Ravens organization is a team that could handle that. Let's hear what John Harbaugh had to say yesterday about the team's interest in the quarterback.
He's a really good football player, and I think, I believe he's a really good person. It all depends on a lot of things. It depends on Colin, first of all, what he wants to do. What's his passion? What's his priority? What's he want to do? And kind of shape he's in, and if he's ready to go, and then our needs, so we'll just kind of see where it goes. But I don't think that's different for us than any other team. We're definitely going to get another arm in here. He's not an arm, obviously, right. So he's an accomplished football player, and we always like having good football players around.
You're listening to The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Clinton Yates filling in here on a Friday. That was Ravens head coach John Harbaugh. I liked what he had to say about that. That was kind without being overly gracious. He's not just an arm. Colin Kaepernick is absolutely the kind of guy that you bring in. You've got a different situation than just some other dude like this guy they brought off the street in Arena League to back up Joe Flacco, who's hurt, by the way. And Flacco is another big part of this if you want to break it down to the football standpoint. Flacco ain't trying to see Kaepernick walk through that door. Shannon, I know y'all talk about this all the time. These starting quarterbacks are real stingy with those backup snaps because you just never know what's going to happen. Coach falls in love with a guy during practice one day. Next thing you know, you're out of a job.
Right, with the snaps or even injuries for that matter. Because sticking with Kaepernick, he got his shot in San Francisco because Alex Smith got a concussion. And Alex Smith lost his job and never got it back in San Francisco. Now you got a Flacco who's out with a back injury, not saying that Kaepernick's at the level that Flacco is, but you never know. You know, Kaepernick could come in if he were to be signed and do some things. Who knows? That it's these starting quarterbacks, they're always watching their backs.
And it makes sense that they should. Because Kaepernick is not just another quarterback coming in. Like I said, he brings a whole different bag. Fans might like him better. That could get awkward. Let's just say Kaepernick Ravens jersey starts selling out. My man can't even get a snap. At some point, that becomes an awkward situation in your locker room. Flacco says, you can do whatever you want at this position because I feel like I'm the quarterback and it doesn't really matter. I'd like to see Colin get back in and at some point get another shot. I wouldn't like that to be here. I don't want him to get another shot here. But he can come here and have some fun. I think it'll be a good spot for him. That's a late hedge by Joe Flacco, by the way, so that he doesn't all out look like it's saying he doesn't want that guy in his locker room. But that's what he's saying. He's saying, I don't want Colin Kaepernick coming in here because, number one, this guy's got more gravitas than I do likely around the league. And number two, I might lose my job. And you don't want to lose your job if you're Joe Flacco. Because people already sort of think that you kind of luck boxed your way into a reasonable career, got a decent payday, and maybe you're not that good anyway. There are questions up among people who care about this in Baltimore. I find this so interesting, though, what this would be like on a grassroots ground level. Kaepernick doing work in that community. Kaepernick just being a person in the regular cycle of Baltimore media. And let's not act like after that Freddie Gray situation shook out the way it did, mind you, no one went to jail, that suddenly everything is better in Baltimore. Right there on the ground in BMO would be plenty things for anyone, really, to talk about on a regular basis. Whether or not Colin's going to be that guy or not, we don't know. But, man, that's a different setting than any other place in the league. That would really, really be fascinating. From everything outside of the football, I love this idea. I'm actively rooting for Colin Kaepernick to go to the Ravens right now. I just talked myself into that. Because before, I was of the belief that he wasn't going to ever get back in the league, and I don't think that was going to bother me anymore, that much. But if he comes back to the Ravens, that's a story I'll watch week to week. A little tension between him and Wacko Flacco. I'm here for that. I just don't know. I never thought Harbaugh would be the one. But he's a heck of a guy. He's got his head screwed on straight, and he's the kind of dude that's not going to back down from a challenge. This is what the Harbaugh brothers do. I think it would be a good look for the Kaepernicks and for the Harbaughs and the Ravens, for that matter, to pick him up. Okay, Baltimore, you're back in my good graces on a Friday.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
My name is Clinton Yates, guest hosting on a Friday. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests are on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Joining us right now on said line is BHM digital writer and journalism professor at Morehouse College, David Dennis Jr. What's up, David? How are you?
What's up, man? How's it going?
Pretty good. So I was as skeptical as you were when I first saw this headline that J.D. Power did a poll that said people stopped watching the league because of protests.
Right.
It was laughable at first, but you broke it down on Twitter. So explain to the people exactly what that headline said and what it actually meant in terms of the numbers after doing the calculations.
Okay, yeah. So the article said that, 26% of people stopped watching football because of protests, right? But if you read the actual article and the numbers, here's what happened. Just throw a bunch of numbers at you. They surveyed 9,200 people, right? Mm-hmm. Out of those 9,200 people, only 12% said that they watched less football, right? So that's 1,104 people out of 9,200, right? You with me?
All right.
So out of those 1,104 people, 26% said they stopped watching because of the flag protest. So in total, that's 287 people out of 9,200 that said they stopped watching football because of the protest, which is around 3%. Right. And on top of that, we don't even know how much less football they watched. It just said less football. We don't know if they were watching 16 games and suddenly watched 15, if they watched every game and fell asleep in a quarter. We don't know what that means. And then on even more on top of that is we don't know. There's no recording of how much football they watch. This is just anecdotal. This is just off of memory. I mean, do you know how much if you watched as much football last year as the year before? So it's all faulty. And so it just seems to be sort of a waste of a survey.
Are you offended by this as a football fan, as a scholar, or both?
Yeah, both. And a journalist. I'm offended on three different ways that this came out to make it seem as though people are not watching because of protests, most of which you don't even see the national anthem during the games. So, what I'm looking for is for, a group of people who said at the beginning, as soon as Kaepernick took the knee the first time, they said, look, I'm not watching any more football. And then at the end of the season, they said, I did not watch any football because of this. Like, if you can show me that, then we can have a conversation. But until I see that, I don't believe that the protest had any impact on viewership. In fact, he had the highest selling jersey.
We're talking with David Dennis Jr. here on The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Clinton Yates filling in here. I'll tell you this, David. I don't believe any person in the world who tells me that they stopped watching NFL football because of one protest that was involving multiple players. I mean, there is no plausible way that I can actually believe that because the connectivity between the two things is just not there for me. I don't even understand how this got out of the chute at J.D. Power. Never mind the headline. This just seems irresponsible on multiple levels for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, unless you can show me somebody who said before they're not watching and continue to not watch, then go for it. But, I mean, I don't know how many people were watching the 49ers games last season anyway.
Right. So let me ask you this. What do you think about the Kaepernick situation? I mean, I was talking about this earlier in the program. He might go to Baltimore. John Harbaugh, the coach, has talked about this. I think that there's a very different scenario of him going to a place that actually has an on-the-ground social activism component in a way that Baltimore does versus a city like, I don't know, a San Diego or just thinking of random places off the top, Cincinnati. Where do you think, if he lands, would be sort of a good place for what is effectively the Colin Kaepernick show, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Baltimore is probably the best place. At this point, it looks like the last place that's going to be offering him anything, barring some sort of injury. Overall, I mean, I'm on the camp that this is a non-football related blackballing and ban of a player. To me, it's the last straw in terms of, grievances that the NFL has done against so many different people. I don't plan on watching football until Kaepernick gets on the team. I said that. I wrote that a couple months ago. At the time, I sort of thought he would land on the team. And then there's been so much going on that, I'm fine with it. I can take it or leave it until Kaepernick gets on the squad. If it doesn't happen, then I'm just not going to watch, any football.
We're talking with David Dennis Jr. here on The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Clinton Yates filling in here. Tell me what that means, though, for you. Like, are you going to not watch games on game day? Do you pull out from basically everything related to the league? I mean, because the NFL is not an easy league to avoid if you like sports in general. How are you going to do this?
Well, I have a wife and two kids who would love to have my attention 4 hours every Sunday. It's been hard enough to get in front of a TV to watch games anyway, so that won't be a problem. I mean, I know it's going to be all over the place. I'll just, I don't have any problem cutting it off. There's just too much, man. There's like the CTE stuff. There's domestic violence stuff. There's the Kaepernick stuff. There's Roger Goodell's statements about marijuana that were, coded in the same, racial issues that have led so many black people to be incarcerated, through the history of America. It's just too much for me, and I'm fine with it. I might I've been talking about doing some community service on Sundays or doing something in the Kaepernick spirit. But, I'm fine. It's probably going to be tough. And with my luck, this will be the year the Saints win the Super Bowl. But, I'm fine with it.
He's David Dennis Jr. You can find him on Twitter at DavidDTSS. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Shannon, I think that's interesting what he said there. I could cut it off. I'm finding that that's what most people who talk about this, that's where they are. It's like, if I'm going to dump football, it's not that I'm going to watch less games or I'm only going to watch the 1 o'clocks and not the 4 o'clocks. Or I'm going to cut Thursday night football out of my life. I think for most people, it's like, if I'm going to stop watching football, I'm simply going to have to throw this whole thing out of the window because I can't deal with it. It fascinates me.
Obviously, I think now more than ever, a lot of social issues are being talked about during the broadcast, before the broadcast. Obviously that's what we do in this industry. And for some people, they can't separate the two, and they can't digest the game and that information at the same time. They want to separate the two. So I can understand it for some. It doesn't bother me. I try to watch as many games as possible while at the same time simultaneously balancing home life. But it doesn't bother me. But I can understand why some people kind of want to tune out from it, though.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at this stage of my life, I watch football for the job and to hang out with my friends. I'm not tuning in for extra stuff. I just don't enjoy it that much as because of all the things that we talked about. There's so many things that I don't want to say are bothersome that it offends me because it's not that. I'm not too good for whatever is going on in the league in many cases. Now, obviously, domestic violence, all sorts of other crimes I'm not a fan of, but it's not about turning your nose down at it. It's just that at some point there's an overall, what's the word, odiousness, if that's a word, somebody help me out, that I think for a lot of people it's just like, you know what, I'm good, fam. Don't really need this right now. Guys are getting head injuries, literally killing themselves after they get out of the league. All sorts of shenanigans are going on with guys that are still in the league, having issues keeping players on rosters because of their sociological and societal beliefs. A lot of people, that just turns off altogether. Doesn't really even matter what's happening with the wins and the losses.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
We're going to talk a little hoops now. Kyrie Irving is pulling a move that we've all pulled in our lives. Where sometimes you just don't want to talk to somebody, so you just turn off your phone and you just go chill and do whatever you want to do. You don't tell them you're going to do that. And you certainly don't indicate anything before that. But Kyrie Irving, because of the fact that he requested a trade, has now decided that he's going full non-communicado with the Cavs front office, which for a grown man is an incredibly petty move, but also what makes the NBA great. I mean, how frustrated do you got to be if you work in the Cavs front office and homeboy ain't even answering the phone? I mean, what level did you go to? Do you DM slide at that point? Maybe go to the Instagram DMs? The secret layer of DMs that people don't talk about? You fire off an email, hey, Kyrie, where you been, bruh? Kind of want to talk about that old trade you requested. You're getting back auto replies, out of office replies. I want a boat. Leave me alone. You try to text. He hits you back with the couple letters, and the 3 dots are just up there in perpetuity. You're like, dag, what are we going to say? It's supposed to be a long text. Where's my man at? Kyrie is just icing him out. For reasons I'm not really sure that I even understand. He just says he wants to go. Which leads to a whole other question about LeBron and what's actually happening with that team. And whether or not this is going to affect LeBron's legacy down the line. If for whatever reason the narrative gets shifted to LeBron being a guy that other stars didn't want to play with. That's a different discussion entirely that we can get into later. I don't actually believe that to be true. But I do believe that the potential for that is out there because people like to take things way too far, But Kyrie, man, this is so fascinating to me. The cold ice out. Let's hear what Pablo Torre had to say on First Take about where he thinks Kyrie wants to play.
I got a phone call. And the voice on the other end of that phone call is a trustworthy person, and he was saying to me that Kyrie Irving very badly wants to be a New York Knick. Kyrie Irving wants to come home. And so Carmelo Anthony in this scenario is kind of like the ghost of Christmas future. This is what your life could be. Don't be me. Help Carmelo Anthony prevent you from becoming Carmelo Anthony. Because the Knicks, Jen, you're right. We know what they are. They can't have nice things. I get why Kyrie Irving wants to play in Madison Square Garden. I get that he loves playing there, dropping all sorts of tremendous performances at MSG. Kyrie has done that, and we respect him more for that in New York. But this is not the right move for that dude.
Pablo Torre on First Take. Not reporting that news, simply speculating based on a voice on the other end of a phone that we can only deduce is a man, because it said he. So we don't know who it is. But Kyrie wanting to go back to New York is an interesting thing. He's from New Jersey, right, Shannon?
He's from Jersey. His father's from New York, though.
Okay. So there's a homecoming. Kyrie doesn't strike me as like, when you think New York point guard, maybe in his game a little bit, but in terms of his grit, I don't think the old school guys you would see, the Telfairs of the world, all those guys that played in the Big East for so many seasons that maybe didn't necessarily make it to the pros, but embodied that type of player at the college level. Kyrie doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. But you're from where you're from, so it could be a good homecoming for him. I'm interested to see, though, whether or not. I just don't feel like, if you're the Cavs, why would you do this? Unhappy Kyrie? Okay. But there's no way you get equal value for a player of his caliber. It's just not possible. And so if he's upset at the dynamic of the team, whether it's all of LeBron's squad being on the team plane or basically having to live and work under their fearless leader, LeBron James, at all times, if that's annoying, who knows? But that's a tough spot to be in if you're Cleveland. What are you going to do? Tell LeBron to chill out and pipe down? I mean, I guess theoretically you could try that. Say, hey, Bron, we've got a little situation we've got to work out here. Do you mind ceding a little ground for our close personal friend Kyrie Irving? He's a little upset. So maybe, maybe a couple less swirlies, Not really going to do those at lunch anymore. Yeah, maybe cut it out with the wedgies. That's getting a little annoying. Just, try to be his friend. How about that?
Well, my question for you in regards to Kyrie in Cleveland, what else does he have to accomplish in Cleveland? The chance, the pursuit for championships, and I get that, well, at least for one more season, make it to the finals, have a shot at that. But let's assume LeBron leaves or whatever the case with LeBron. Like, what else does he have individually to accomplish? Because you're there in Cleveland, you're not going to win MVP while LeBron's still on your team. And then once LeBron leaves, it's not going to be a very good team because you're probably going to have to redo everything the way the team is constructed. So in Cleveland, what else does Kyrie have to accomplish or can accomplish?
Nothing. I think you're right. Not much. And, cliche alert, he just needs a change of scenery. Kyrie does, though. I'm willing to buy that. I'm more willing to buy he just doesn't feel that he needs to be there anymore as a reasonable reason to go than just I'm tired of playing with LeBron. Although I do like the idea of LeBron and his goons bullying everybody else on the Cavs to the point that nobody wants to play with them anymore. That makes me laugh.
Well, another added element of this, of course, is the fact that we have somebody that doesn't want to play with LeBron. When's the last time we actually had someone of Kyrie's caliber or even close to it that said, I don't want to play with LeBron anymore? Because usually LeBron is the guy that everyone gravitates to, right?
That's what I'm saying. Bad guy LeBron, and I'm using bad guy in air quotes here, is not a side of that personality that we've seen discussed much. LeBron is always looked at as the stalwart leader. His troops will follow him onto the beaches of Normandy and storm and take over. You don't hear, yo, man, LeBron better shut up. Tired of this fool. You don't hear that very often. And Kyrie hasn't come out and said that much, but he's kind of saying it by deciding he's not even going to answer phone calls from the organization paying his paychecks. Just in general, I'd love to be in a job like that where somebody's paying me and I can just afford to ignore them. Nah, I don't want to talk to y'all today. Nah, I'm good. Cleveland's in a terrible spot because if this festers and you go in the next season, a season within which you've got a shot to be good, you've got a shot to get back to the finals. You're still the Cavaliers, but it's also going to be your last true run, presuming LeBron's going to leave. What do you do? A lot of people are talking this trade LeBron nonsense. Can you imagine if they pulled that? Let me unload LeBron right quick and get 2 full rosters of players and then just deal out from there.
Yeah, LeBron was prepared for that. LeBron's one of 3 players in the league with a no trade.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's no way. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know which way I would want the team to go if I were a Cavs fan, I guess is where I'm coming at this from. Because it doesn't make sense to just get rid of Kyrie because he wants to. You got to find a way to work that out. But at the same time, like you said, Shannon, they got a situation coming up year after next, presuming LeBron is headed out the door. I don't know what I would want. I don't know what I would want.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Been talking a little basketball here. Kyrie Irving has demanded a trade from the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he's not talking to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Philip in Charlotte, how are you?
Hey, guys, appreciate you taking my call. I think what Kyrie is doing is genius. It may not be intentionally genius, but from a tactician's point of view, the person with the least interest in any relationship, either business or personal, has the most power. And so if you equate what he's doing to a personal relationship, let's say you're in a relationship with a beautiful woman, and one day she says to you, I want to break up. That's what Kyrie did to begin with. I want to break up. I want to trade. And what do you say? You say, baby, maybe we can work it out. We can work on our issues. And what's Cleveland doing? Okay, we'll call a couple teams, see what we can get offer-wise. They're offering, or they're asking a lot, rightly so. He's a premier player of the team. And then maybe you don't talk to her for a few days, or maybe you see her around with another guy. And that's what he's doing here with breaking off communication. He's showing them that he's got even less interest. And when you see her doing that kind of stuff, then you're ready for her to go. So
thanks for the phone call, Philip. I appreciate it. I get where he's going with that. I don't know how much that analogy stands up. I mean, I get the road he's going down. I think it's more of a, hey, I'm moving out. Whether or not we break up or not, we'll figure that out later. But either way, we will no longer be sleeping in the same bed. That is a closer analogy, in my opinion. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Wayne in New Mexico, how are you?
Good. Thanks for taking my call. It's kind of weird that people are kind of scrutinizing Kyrie Irving the way he's kind of acting, but nobody really ever questions LeBron as far as his character and what he's done to kind of exacerbate the issue by kind of berating him and saying that he's like his father figure and kind of talking down to him when he was sometimes on the sidelines with him. You guys remember if this was anyone else in any place of work and someone was berating you the way LeBron kind of did to Kyrie Irving, you would tell that person to stand up to that person and stand up for yourself. So I think it's kind of weird that I guess because of his success within and his abilities, he's kind of given a pass as far as his character, and nobody really questions his way of handling the situation because they just assume that everybody's supposed to get along with LeBron because LeBron's the best. In reality, LeBron kind of probably made this an issue the way he kind of treated Kyrie Irving. Kyrie's kind of an alpha male as well, and he didn't like being kind of spoken down to, and I think he's just kind of taking the high road as far as getting moved. But I think people are scrutinizing him too much, and they could be looking at LeBron, what he did as well, to kind of make this issue bigger than it has been.
Thanks for the phone call. I don't agree with that, but I understand where he's going. I don't think it's a right-wrong thing. I don't think LeBron's got to be some sort of a bad guy for Kyrie to not want to be there. I know I was using that term last segment, but that was sort of facetiously in terms of the narratives people paint. But sometimes people just get tired of getting along. You can just have plain personality disagreements that doesn't involve somebody necessarily being wrong, if you will. Guy was tired of him. That happens. You know, this is not unheard of. I don't necessarily think that I'm going to start jumping on LeBron as some sort of bad influence in a locker room. I think people might just get tired of him. And that's fine. That makes complete sense if you're a person who just wants to do something different. That's why we're human beings. Free will at all. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Clinton Yates filling in for Bomani Jones on the right time. Ciotis. Pardon me. Matt in Arizona. I'm good.
What you guys thought about Kyrie going to the Western Conference and if that would be good for his career and maybe help make a better case that he's a better player than he's getting credit for having played next to LeBron James all these years.
Do you want him to come to Phoenix, Matt?
I'm a Denver fan. I want him to go to Denver. But I don't know how that would work. I don't know if Denver has enough to give to get Kyrie to still stay a contender, to at least try to make it for the 8 seed.
Thanks for the phone call. This brings up an interesting question, though, to me about what people think of what Kyrie's ceiling is going to be. Because when I think of Kyrie Irving, I don't have anybody that I can sort of slot into like a similar situation from a career trajectory standpoint. You know how on draft night, Shannon, Jalen Rose does those, he looks like this guy, and he sort of indicates who a guy coming out of college is going to be like in the pros. And it's not necessarily always some big-time all-star. It's just sort of a side player. I can't think of somebody who, if I said, yeah, this guy's career is probably going to project out to this, that Kyrie would be. The first person that comes to mind is Steve Nash. But I don't see Kyrie getting that many MVPs coming down the line. He just doesn't seem like he's going to be that dominant of a player in a way that Nash was. I can't really slot him into that space, Shannon.
The guy that I know Bomani's been comparing to in this situation with Kyrie has been Stephon Marbury. And, of course, we know what happened once Marbury got to the Knicks, how everything went left there. But his comparison was when Marbury left the Timberwolves because he wanted to go home, and everyone was like, well, why would you want to leave a situation where you and Kevin Garnett, good friends, it's working, you're building something, and Marbury wanted to go home. He hated Minnesota, went to New Jersey at the time, then later to Phoenix, then New York, and so on. But he was comparing him as a scoring first point guard. Kyrie, yes, has had more team success winning the championship, but Marbury went on to be an all-star. So I think that was the comparison he was making as far as a guy that would leave when you would assume that everything was good to want to go home.
That's very basketball specific, and I realize that that's what we're talking about here. But like for me, it's so hard to make basketball to basketball comparisons with Stephon Marbury simply because of how everything else went with the shoes, China, head tattoos. Like I almost sort of forgot, not to say I forgot about that, but like when I think of the largesse of Stephon Marbury's career, when he left what NBA team is like almost secondary to everything he became as far as his contributions to the game.
Right, and I think that's why so much of the focus, I think, on his point was when he initially left with the Minnesota, if you could think back that far.
No, I get it.
The Minnesota, New Jersey thing, when it was, strictly basketball and his unhappiness being in Minnesota.
1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. DJ in Houston, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for taking my call. I want to start by saying I'm absolutely not a LeBron apologist at all. But it's amazing how this narrative has shifted to somebody doesn't want to play with LeBron. I think he's enough of a legend at this point, or enough of a – I don't want to say legend. He's established.
He's a legend.
He's a legend. He is. So let me say this. This is a little bit of a cultural reference. Remember back in the day when Destiny's Child broke up and everybody's like, this is going to stain Beyonce's legacy. She's Diana Ross. She's a diva. Does anybody even talk about that anymore? I think that's the same thing when we look back at this period. Yeah, well, I mean, you look at LeBron. I think we're going to say the same thing when we look back at this period, right?
So you're saying Kyrie is Kelly Rowland?
I think, no, I don't even think Kyrie is Kelly Rowland, really. I'm not going to see he's overrated. He's an absolutely wonderful player. I think there's a few other players in the league that you can plug into that position that's a true finisher, like a Dame Lillard. I mean, I'm not going to list the guys that you can plug into playing with LeBron, and they're going to be an excellent point guard. They're going to be an excellent off-the-ball guard. I think Derrick Rose can plug in that position if he stays healthy, obviously. So the narrative of not wanting to play with LeBron and all that, I think it's kind of crazy. And I understand that all the guys have egos. They deserve to. Kyrie deserves to have an ego. But when you step back and look at the bigger picture, the whole narrative is almost a little bit irritating to hear, oh, this guy doesn't want to play with LeBron. Well, who do you think you really are? You know,
thanks
LeBron,
for the phone call, DJ. I appreciate it. Yeah, you know, I don't think that's fair to Kyrie. I think Kyrie's better than that. I mean, he basically called my man Kelly Rowland. Let's play the little game of radio math bingo here, Shannon. If Kelly Rowland is Kyrie Irving, and Kelly Rowland made a song with Nelly, remember that joint? Do you remember what basketball player played Kelly Rowland's boyfriend in that video?
Larry Hughes?
Bingo bango!
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Friday. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. And all guests join us on the Shell Penzoa Performance Line. Joining us on said line right now is ESPN's Josina Anderson. She is at the New York Football Giants camp right now. Josina, let me ask you off the top, not just your thoughts about what OBJ said, but I would like to know, relative to all of the other stories and storylines that are going on around that camp, what percentage of the airspace is being taken up by OBJ?
110.
Okay.
and I mean, listen, rightly so. He's the one that generates the headlines. You know, he's the one that commands the attention, creates the attention, draws the attention to himself. So it is definitely understandable. I mean, as for what I think about him going on uninterrupted and saying, I want to be the highest paid, wide receiver in the NFL, well, look, let him shoot his shot. I want a black card. I want, to be able to shop at Neiman Marcus all the time. We should all declare in our life the things that we dream for. So I'm never going to, down a person for wanting the best and maximizing their value, which even as people in our industry, I totally understand that. I think the question is, one, how are the Giants reacting to it? And two, how realistic it is. And about 2 hours after practice today, Clinton, Giants owner John Mara came out and started talking to the media and basically said that, look, regardless of what he said, which you kind of laughed off the whole highest paid thing, he said he deserves to be paid. He's going to get paid, and it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I even asked him directly if any of the headlines that Odell has created around himself is reason for a delay in talks because they haven't even started. And he said, nope, top wide receiver deserves to be, paid, and he will be rewarded. And then to the other part of that, whether it's realistic, I mean, right now you got quarterback Derek Carr setting the market for highest average per year on new money, which is Derek, Carr at $25 million a year. The highest paid wide receiver, so at Odell's position, is $17 million. So if he's asking to be paid the highest in the NFL, that would be at $8 to $9 million more than Antonio Brown. Julio Jones has the highest guarantee at $47 million, so that might be a marker that Odell would be looking at. And Andrew Luck has the highest overall guarantee at $87. So when I was talking to some people from the Giants organization today, Clinton, they were saying, I'm like, all right, is this realistic? Like, are we going to be holding out for this stuff? And he's right. Like, I think, Josina, you're basically answering your own question. So I think it's realistic that he will go over AB. I don't think it's realistic that he will eclipse the quarterback market.
We're talking with ESPN's Josina Anderson here on the Shell Penzoa Performance Line. Clinton Yates filling in for Bomani Jones on the right time. Outside of the owner and I guess the press, presumably you talked to a couple players about how this is sort of taking over things. Is there any concern amongst guys in the locker room that from a football standpoint, I don't want to use the cliche distraction, but going into camp, they might need to be a little bit more focused on football than just wondering about what kind of money ODB is making?
Look, I don't think from a money standpoint, anyone in the NFL is going to begrudge, him from a, maximizing your contract value standpoint. particularly relative to all the headlines and NBA players have been making with, all the money that they've been commanding, albeit, for a league where you've got 12 guys on the roster compared to 53, so that's understandable. But the flip side of that, Clinton, is, a little bit of exasperation / being accustomed to Odell creating this attention towards himself. I heard one person say, it's just white noise, at this point. So listen, it's like they're accustomed to it. You got the owner laughing it off. I mean, that's kind of dissipating leverage when you're basically saying you're about to open your wallet to him. Right. It's just a matter of when you do it. I think the most intriguing aspect of this, he's going to get his money, is just, what are we going to witness from Odell once he has this Nike deal, which can pay him up to $48 million, and you couple that with however he's about to break the wide receiver market at the very least.
What other storylines are coming out of Giants training camp? A lot of people think that team could win the division, and if you're going to win the division, you probably got a pretty good shot to go deep. I mean, it's not all him all the time. They got a pretty good football team surrounding them. What else is going on in that camp right now?
I mean, listen, the front office did a good job of really shoring up this team almost at every spot. I mean, you look at their defense, with adding Snacks in the interior, landing Collins on the back end, DRC, Janoris Jenkins in the secondary. You look at what they have with the wide receivers, with Brandon Marshall coming over from the Jets. Really the only thing to kind of watch for with this team is the offensive line and how they continue to protect or not continue to protect Eli, whether Eric Flowers, who is a, former top, pick for this team, is going to hold up on the left side because, that has been somewhat of a regression and a leak for them, and that's important, protecting Eli's blind side. And then, if they really have the bulldozer that they need at running back, Rashad Jennings is no longer a Giant. They lost out to the Philadelphia Eagles on LeGarrette Blount. So, when it comes goal-to-goal situations, if they're going to be, productive as they need. And remember, Eli Manning is not a scrambling quarterback. So when you have O-line issues, as did the Seattle Seahawks, you got a Russell Wilson to be able to run around that pressure. With Eli, you got a total of 11 yards scrambling. So that's when you get a frustrated Odell, like, dang, we got all these weapons, Victor Cruz, Sterling Shepard, and we can't get the ball down the field past 20-plus yards. So it's watching that dynamic, Clinton, and watching if they have any adversity in the season, the dynamic between Brandon Marshall and Odell. So those are the things I think people will be watching for this year.
Last thing I'll ask you, Eli's getting up there. You got to have some sort of succession plan in order to be a successful team with any continuity in the NFL. What's the talk around his, I don't want to say final days, because guys are trying to play into their 40s, including his own brother, but they've obviously got to be thinking about what the next step is, and Eli has to be too.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's why they picked up Davis Webb. Young kid, actually looks really good. I like his size. When I've watched him play, rookie camp, off-season practices, you see the potential there. So I actually think from right now that looks like a good pickup. In Giants camp right now, they're talking about putting Eli Manning on a little bit of a pitch count just to, spare his arm. You saw the Arizona Cardinals doing the same thing with Carson Palmer. Just to see if giving him a little extra rest early will pay off down the stretch. But even last year, if you remember, after, there was some frustration with Odell on the sideline, if you remember, some of the talk started to shift towards Eli, like, is he holding the bargain? So I think, minus the age, it's just really, we have to continue to be truthful about what Eli Manning's play is when he's playing alpha teams, when he's playing pressure teams. Because if you remember that game against Minnesota, Minnesota seems to have their number a lot of times. But, he a lot of balls going down into the ground, a lot of rush throws because he doesn't run. So to answer your question, he still has Manning on the back of his jersey. But I think the media and fans are more apt to be honest about his play and will continue to do so this season.
She's Josina Anderson. She's at Giants camp, and she's got the skinny on what's going on with that team. Thank you.
Doing my skinny repeal. Bye.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Longtime listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Headline: Aaron Rodgers says he's fallen back in love with football and therefore he's ready to play this season. This is interesting on a couple levels. Aaron Rodgers is obviously the quarterback of the Packers. He's a star in this league that's, if not one, is 1B. I can't think of 4 people that are more famous in the NFL than Aaron Rodgers. Discount, double check, yada, yada. Dated Olivia Munn, famous actress. He's living that Hollywood lifestyle, and he's a big shot. But to hear from a guy like him that he's regained interest in football is such a sort of fascinating thing to me, because for the modern star in the NFL, the notion that you are obsessed with the playing of the game is so secondary now. Like, when you think about who these older players were, and you think about, if we're going way back, you just throw out names like Dick Butkus and Mike Singletary and all these kind of guys. Their obsession, presumably with the game, was such a large part of their personality. But now, it's not that bad to admit that you're kind of just doing it for the money. Dominic Foxworth is my co-host on The Morning Roast with Mina Kimes. Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. to noon, ESPN Radio. Talks about this all the time. He says it was a hard part for him in the latter part of his career to realize that he was doing it to get the check. And, strictly for that. Because the love of the game went away. But he now says, Rodgers now says he's sort of restructuring his life in order to be able to play into his 40s. But then at the same time, you got guys like Ben Roethlisberger that are like, yo, I might just have to stop playing. I'm not trying to have my brains turn to mush by the time I'm 50 so I can't play with my kids. We discussed this earlier in the show. The NFL has decided they no longer want to partner with the NIH to fund their concussion research and brain injury work. They're pulling out $16 million, rather, of funding for that after they figured out that the guy who was going to be running it was a guy that didn't necessarily like the league, so that's awkward. Number 2, there's that report that came out that basically said pretty much everyone who plays NFL football is affected by CTE by the time they die. That didn't help. And I just wonder where the larger narrative is going to shift in the next 5 to 10 years, not just from guys like me sitting or standing behind microphones talking about what we think, but from people that are legitimately active in the game. What's my man's name, Shannon, who just retired for the Ravens? Walked away the day after that report came out. He was obviously a math whiz. He's going back to Harvard or maybe to MIT, I think. And we've seen a lot of guys retire. I believe the San Francisco 49ers got hit randomly with a bunch of guys. I think they had 2 guys retire, another guy. But my point is that it's really fascinating to see these bigger time players sort of openly discuss what their futures are in terms of the game without it being, I'm going to play as long as I can until they drag the jersey off the field. Drag me in my jersey off the field.
Right. The gentleman you referred to was John Urschel from the
Yes.
Ravens, and I think he is gonna. I think he's gonna go to MIT. I think that's what the plan is because he is a math whiz. But I think today's athletes, though, I think they have, in addition to having more access and information, I think they're more honest about their interests outside of just the sport and the profession that they play. The fact that we could be. We don't have to be obsessed. We can still love the game. We still play the game. It's our job. We're still devoted to it. But at the same time, we have other interests outside of just the game where we're the football player second. In the past, you were a professional athlete first, and that's what you were known for, and you had to be identified as that. And now, for some, that's being that professional athlete can be second, and that's fine.
And I got to be honest, I'm happy to hear Benjamin talk like this. Full disclosure, I've known Ben for a long time. I went to Miami of Ohio. I covered him there. He's the reason why I'm in this business. Wrote about that guy for a couple of years. People were like, oh, I know you. That dude plays there. I was like, yes, correct. Thank you. So I've known him for a while. And he's always been a guy that took a lot of hits. He's always been a dude that you thought, ooh, I don't really know if he's going to get up from that or if he should get up from that. So to see a guy like him whose identity was very much caught up in being the tough guy, take a realistic look at what his future is, to me, that's progression. You know, it's not always going to be, oh, can we make a helmet that's safer? Oh, can we find ways to make sure that all our baseline testing is correct or fund enough research in order to make people understand the truth? Yeah, that's going to be part of it. But there's a larger psychological thing at play where if football players are simply allowed or feel that they are allowed within themselves to talk about that kind of stuff, I think we're all in a better position for it. If a guy who's given his body to the game, given his life to the game, says, hey, man, I might not be getting dragged off, but this isn't really pretty. Probably is not too smart for me to continue doing this for much longer. Meanwhile, Tom Brady wants to play into his 40s, and his wife's on The View talking about he's concussed every season. You know what I mean? There's a real disconnect in the honesty with which players communicate their situations. And I think that the more the guys can come out and discuss things and be honest with themselves about what their lives have in store for them, the better. Because as we've seen, let the record state, the NFL is going to give up any information that they don't want you to know. But after the dudes are done getting their paychecks or after they think that they can see the finish line, they can certainly illuminate you as to what the mindset is of somebody who's been in that spot. Aaron Rodgers says he's fallen back in love with it. I don't know what that means for the Packers. RELAX, relax, I believe is his favorite word to spell out.
I think for both Rodgers and Roethlisberger, they're both coming to a realization that, hey, we're at the end of the line. So I think for Rodgers, it's kind of sitting back and having more of an appreciation for it now because you're so hyper-focused throughout your career. And now that, he's been in the league since 2005, Roethlisberger since 2004, you step back and start appreciating the little things, going to camp and spending that time because you see guys leave and guys get cut, guys get hurt and can't play anymore, and you sit back and just like, hey, I was able to be a quarterback in this league, and then not too many guys had the chance to do that. So right. I think that perspective stage in their careers, I think both guys are.
And that's good. I don't like seeing guys get dragged off the field. I don't like seeing dudes that are hobbling around on one leg. It was nice to see Peyton Manning go out at the top because he managed to get a great defense so good that they could just, weekend at Bernie's him out there into the huddle, and he managed to win the whole daggone thing. But ultimately, I don't love seeing that. And I like it when guys make good decisions for their futures. It's just real difficult when it seems that some people feel so much more empowered to talk about it than others. That John Urschel story was shocking to me. If only because it was literally the day after my man just said, nah, I'm out. Not even going to one practice. I'm going to the front office, and I'm telling them I'm retiring, and I'm done with this instantly. The order of operations was shocking there, not what he actually did. But I think it's a reasonable crossroad period at this point for the NFL. If studies are coming out basically saying that everybody is doomed to one fate, and the NFL is not even willing to put their own money up for studies to do this on their own, you're going to have to go somewhere for the truth. And if that truth is the guys who actually played the game, and they feel empowered enough to do that, well, then we all win.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Right now, though, it's time to talk about baseball. It's my favorite sport I played the most growing up. I got a tweet from somebody the other day. They sent me something that they added me on, and it was an interview with, I think, Darryl Strawberry, talking about what baseball has to do to be cool again. And it was directly, here it is, African-American MLB legends explain what made baseball cool and what needs to happen to connect the game with modern black youths. Never mind the fact that that tweet sounds like it was written by a 75-year-old man. The Utes. The two Utes. Anyway, and it was a fine interview. It was Daryl talking about whatever he thought the case may be. But the major premise of that tweet bothers me. Because this notion that black folks have to think something is cool in order to be able to like it is very problematic. I'm a baseball fan. I'm not just a Major League Baseball fan. I'm a fan of the sport. I like the sound of the crack of the bat and watching dudes throw it across the diamond and the field. At Little League, high school, minor league levels as well, and college. The sport itself is excellent to me. It's complex, it's long, and it's rewarding. The merit of the game itself is why I enjoy it. But this shortcut notion that so many people think is the issue in terms of why black folks aren't as interested in the game is wrong on two levels. The first level is that the barriers fundamentally and structurally that have been put against people in certain neighborhoods from being able to access the game are real as a mug anyway. Like, I'm not going to get into a whole breakdown of redlining and how sort of neighborhoods being broken up and where people are allowed to live affects the concept in terms of residency rules and Little League and all that. You can do that on your own and look up Jackie Robinson West and what happened there. They were beating the brakes off of people, and some dude dropped a dime on him because he didn't like how bad he was getting beat. And it turned out that a bunch of kids that were trying to play the game for the right reasons, just because they happen to live in the wrong places, ended up getting a championship taken away. That ain't got nothing to do with what's cool and what's not, because that's not cool. But that's one of the things that at the lowest level, yeah, you're going to prevent kids from playing. They're just going to move on to something else. There's also the whole issue that there's only 11.5 scholarships to be doled out at the college level per baseball team. So there is an accessibility to athletics and education factor that pushes people in different directions. But thirdly, is that baseball, and I'm talking at the big league level, we've talked about this many times on this show, has a huge problem with the culture of the game in terms of who controls, who's allowed to have fun. You see guys coming in, you watch the World Baseball Classic, guys are flipping bats, guys are celebrating all this. You don't see that in the bigs because the bigs are still run by old white guys who all want everything to be the way the game is supposed to be played, which is fine. It is very anti-cool in itself. But my personal belief as a fan of baseball is that you got to get people to start liking the actual game. The fundamentals. You got to explain to people why a strike him out, throw him out is a fun play. And I realize I sound like the oldest man alive talking about this. But that's ultimately what baseball's issue is going to be. If people don't enjoy the actual game, the gimmicks aren't going to matter anyway. And it's a slow burn. It takes a long time to really understand every single thing you see on a baseball field, and they still even say that every time you come to the ballpark, you're probably going to see something you've never seen before. I spent 3 hours watching a baseball game yesterday where a pigeon was on the field the entire time. Shout out to my man Rufus. And that wasn't even the craziest thing I saw, because the Nats hit 5 homers in 1 inning, half inning, which I'd never seen before either. My point is that baseball's problems, popularity-wise, are so multifaceted that when you say something as short-sighted as, oh, well, the black kids are going to start liking it if it's cool again, what do? It's disrespectful to the game, and it's disrespectful to all the people that have been fans for real reasons for a long time. Nothing was ever cool to me about baseball. It was hard work that was boring for a long amount of time, but when you finally achieved something, you felt like you had accomplished it. Shannon, I don't know how much baseball you played growing up, but it wasn't cool to be running around all dirty with your glove in your back pocket or in your butt with your hat on backwards trying to go to the mall. There's nothing ever really that cool about baseball. What was fun was the game.
And just being out there all day.
The Sandlot, right, Shannon?
Right, absolutely. I would play in the streets or I would go to the park and just be out there all day, and turning double plays or making diving catches or whatever the case may be, or the first time you learned how to throw an off-speed pitch. Like, that was me. I was a baseball kid growing up. So to me, baseball was cool. But outside of that, of course, it didn't have the same lure as, basketball and yet Michael Jordan and all of that stuff. But for me, baseball was still cool.
I mean, it was cool in the sense that you liked it, but it wasn't cool in the sense that you were like, wow. I don't know. It wasn't aspirational. It was achievable.
Right.
Which is sort of why it's dope. You don't got to be the biggest dude to be a pretty good ball player. You can get around the field. You can throw it kind of hard. You got quick hand-eye. You can find a place on the field. The overall national comprehension of what makes baseball fun, I think, is lacking. It's a huge issue for me. Huge issue. This is why I'm all on the kids dig the scorecard bit. I went to a minor league game in St. Paul, Minnesota 2 weeks ago when I was there for the X Games. You remember, Shannon, because we broadcast this show from there.
Right.
That second night after we did the show, I think it was a Thursday, I went to the yard. St. Paul Saints. I get there. I pull out my scorecard. I'm that guy. Hashtag kids dig the scorecard. Much to my surprise, family pulls up behind me. 2 kids, husband, wife. They pull out a scorecard. I'm standing on my seat applauding to myself. Because we could share the game. The actual baseball was something we got to discuss. Not because we cared about the dudes and who was going to what league next. Independent league anyway, so it's sort of a different setup than the typical AAA through single A scenario. But it's because the machinations of the moves are fun. This is what baseball is. They're ordered pairs, effectively, that you simply go through over and over. And when somebody makes a nice play, it's a fun little breakup in an otherwise nice day. Nice way to spend a night or day. Get back to marketing the actual game, and you will find people that are more interested in actually watching it for the larger part of their lives. Pretty simple.
Thanks for listening to the Right Time Podcast. Please come back Monday for more, and don't forget to listen to The Right Time with Bomani Jones from 4 p.m. to 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.